everyone. Welcome to my podcast, Soul Expansion and Inspiration. This is Series 2, Episode 9, and my name is Ali O'Shea. Today, I would like to give a very warm welcome to my guest, whose name is Antony Covello. Antony is a certified Reiki practitioner level 2, an ordained minister, certified master practitioner stroke teacher in metaphysics, and Antony also has the gift of clairsentience. Welcome to the show, Antony. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, you're so
doing
welcome.
Well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So whereabouts in the United States are you based?
Well, currently right now in Phoenix, Arizona.
Lovely.
And very warm at this time of the year. It's starting to get warm finally, but so yes, Phoenix, Arizona. Currently I'm trying to get back to my home state of California. When I was out here in Phoenix, I started to, I was in a tough time in my life. And what happened was that I found myself out of the ashes as of like the Phoenix itself. I became who I am now. And it's been a very long journey along the way. So
yeah,
it's time. Yeah. Cause I also have family in California back as well. So it'd be nice to see them.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to get into that story now in a little bit, but
Right.
yeah, you probably know that I visited even California in 2017 when I went to go see Abraham Hicks. So yeah,
Right.
love it there. And of course, Abraham Hicks often goes to Phoenix, doesn't she?
Yeah, she'll actually be out here, I believe, in December this year.
Yeah.
So she's making a trip out. So yes, we're looking forward to that.
Fantastic. So you say that your spiritual journey began really since childhood, that you realized it off and on, but you say that most people shrugged it off on being your imagination, aside from your father, who was, until the time of his death, searching and finding universal truths as he was on his path. He passed when you were 23, but it wasn't until 7 years later that you finally began your quest. So would you tell us a little bit about your quest and what it means for you?
Well, like I said, I had some of those gifts at a young age, and because of the background with my mother, well, don't get me wrong, my mother's actually more open than she used to be. But she raised me pretty much in a predominantly Protestant home. I know as an Italian, that sounds kind of weird. And I grew up even in the Jew. Yeah, Protestant. Yeah,
I was raised Protestant. I was raised Protestant as well.
Yeah, but you think being partially Italian, I would be Catholic. It didn't happen. Yeah. And the funny thing is, in Los Angeles, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. You know, there's a joke somewhere in that. Yeah. So you got to chuckle. Yeah. And it really, I mean, I had these things off and on, and I was able to be able to know somebody before I knew them. I was able to look at them and not judging, but going, okay, this person is this, and this, and just knew. And I guess it was kind of a defense mechanism to keep me safe as a child, because it seemed to really keep me out of a lot of trouble. So it worked well. But my father was introducing a lot of things to me back in the days. Like I said, you know, being raised one way. Then my dad was, after the divorce, again, very, very young. My dad was always taking me out to like the places like under, what do they call it? Self-Realization Center up there in Los Angeles. And the vegetarian restaurant that they used to own. So it's funny how all these years later that comes into play now. So in his quest, and then in the high school years when I was living with him, I fought against what he was trying to tell me, but it wasn't like this until after his death. So moving forward, getting into my college years, I was actually a dance major in college. It was a biology minor. Yeah, with a biology minor, so I was getting more into kinesiology and all that. But a few things I was saying back as a child, or as a young teen, or any young adult, I just said these things I seem to be true, and people. That's when they started saying, "Yeah, you're right. You know, you're out there. You must be smoking something." And I wasn't on anything. It wasn't until after my father passed away, after when I was just barely married into my first marriage for 4 months. And just a week after I turned 23, my father passed away during the Labor Day weekend. So,
right.
you know, and I started that pining for him when after he left, and I had to put everything together. My mother really wasn't too much. She did the best she could. She fell apart. At that time, my wife was falling apart for me, and I had to be the strong one. And I said, well, the only way I can really do this is I led what's the word I'm looking for? The eulogy, or I should say, we all met at a park, and we all just met, and I just let this whole group had them say what they wanted to say about my dad, and then we just ended it in song and prayer, and that was it. And then kind of went off my merry way. And it wasn't until 7 years later when I started, because it was still heavy on my heart. It's like, what made my dad tick this way? Why did he constantly try to find the truth in the universal truths? And what made him be who he is? Since he broke away from the Catholic Church a long time ago. He was the black sheep of the family way back when, you know, and they say, but
yeah, there's always one of them. I got classed as one of them.
Yeah, my father was one of those. So, you know, so I started really studying what he was talking about, or what he was getting into. And the more and more I realized in that early days of my questing, is that I started finding out that he was right on a lot of things. And, oh, wow, you know, I didn't know that. And then, or, you know, something else. And wow, you see, they told me things differently, but now I'm seeing it from a point of view, and that relates to this, and this, or whatever it was. I mean, for example, the Holy Trinity, for example, you know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Holy Ghost, pending. And at the same time, I was realizing, because my father was kind of setting into some Wicca at the time, there's the Mother Maiden Crone. I said, well, that sounds very familiar, but just the feminine side. I'm like, well, that's not unique to one group. That's unique. And that's not unique at all. It's actually there's a lot of different, what's the words I'm looking for? It was showing that there was a lot of similarities, and that's when I started digging deeper. And I was doing some self-studies in comparative religion, and I started finding way too many parallels to one side of the story compared to the other, and I started going, you know, who's telling me the truth now? Because this stuff was written earlier than the biblical texts, and I'm kind of going, where do you go from here? And then that's what started the whole thing off, and that was 7 years later when I just hit 30.
Right.
So it's been going on since.
You were feeling a little bit confused, it sounds like, as to who was telling the truth still, and
right.
It kind of set you off on your own sort of journey to seek the truth, really, as to what it was that
right.
you believe. Really, because, you know, it is about, when we go through these spiritual awakenings, I believe that, you know, we've been told so many things by our peers, by our parents, by the government, by the news, by the schools, by the teachers, by everybody,
exactly.
that we have got these beliefs ingrained inside of us, which are now our beliefs because we've been told them over and over again. And
right.
sometimes it can be that, you know, a little while deciphering what it is that we truly want to believe, and what beliefs to let go of that no longer serve us as humans
right.
going forward in this, you know, I know we're spirits in human format, but sometimes it can take a little bit of time for us to decipher what it is we truly want to believe for us, no matter who said what and who's right and who's wrong, and that at the end of the day they have to be beliefs, I believe, for us that we truly resonate with going forward, especially as we grow older and are finding our path. And it sounds like you went through a bit of that with yours.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. I can say, and sometimes even bullied for some of those beliefs at a very young age. So it was kind of, it was a very interesting time. It's still interesting. In fact, I'm having more and more fun now with it now as I'm getting older. So as the truths start coming out, or what I perceive to be the truth, and everybody needs to speak their truth anyway. So whether they agree or disagree is beside the point.
Yeah.
There's it's just been a lot of self-discovery, and those little aha moments, those little awakenings. I don't think anybody really fully awakens in one fell swoop. I think it's always been in pieces, and then when you're ready for the next awakening, it just happens. It's not that big boom, everything happens and you're totally overwhelmed. I mean, you can be overwhelmed with a little one, but it's not like, okay, now everything's just everything's just groovy and I'm kind of out there now. And no. I don't think the universe works that way. When the universe is ready, when the universe thinks you're ready, you're gonna get hit with it, and then it's just another awakening on another aha moment.
And a continuous, a continuous
on,
path.
right?
Yeah, you know, you've heard that term. I'm sure the universe has shaken you to awaken you.
Exactly.
And it sort of sets you on your path, as you say. So, how did you become an ordained minister?
Oh, that's kind of funny. Well, it's actually through Universal Life Church, and
Does it mean you can marry people?
I can marry people.
Okay.
I can also do baptisms if they want to go that way. Hand fastings for those who don't want to do the traditional marriage. You can still, you know, go through the ceremony, but it's just not legally binding by the state.
Okay.
Or by the church. I mean, you can still do hand fastings. I can do that. I can actually do funerals. Well, since I've had personal experience of doing that one myself, it's not a bad thing. Well, funerals, you could actually lead a funeral if you needed to.
A funeral, okay.
Right. And since, like I said, with my own personal experience with my dad, is what I sort of did when we had the gathering for my father. So it was...
were you already, an ordained minister before he passed?
No, that all happened when I was about 34. It took a while because I started thinking, well, if I'm doing this kind of work, why can't I just have this? And then I guess with the studies I already had, and then went to Universalist Church's, you know, little thing they had to do and go on. They have the classes, which I'm not working on right now because I've got other things I'm working on. So, for example, as you know, manifestation work. So that's part of it. So that's how that whole started off. And then a friend of mine said, so where are you with this? And then she's an ordained minister, a friend of mine. And so I called up the thing and says, well, you're not, we see where you registered, but you didn't fully go for the full distance on this thing. Says, could you, you know, do what you need to do? And then I finally officially became one more in about, back in 2014. So technically it wasn't until 2014.
Wow.
So yeah, they have other courses there, but it's just so you can basically they set it up so you can basically do marriages as a side business. And now that I'm getting older, I'm kind of going, you know, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with marriages, but I started thinking about, you know, considering it what it was and what it is now, I'd still would do them. But I said, yeah, you have to I would like to give people more of a breakdown. In fact, the only one that I did, I actually wrote their ceremony for them. So, and I just felt led to do it. And I said, you guys can interject whatever you need to do when you're giving your vows and all. And it really came out very beautiful and very personal. So,
all right. So when
it's something I felt between them. Yeah.
When you come to Vegas, I'm a really good matchmaker. So when I make people, you can marry them while we're all in Vegas.
Actually, I can. I actually have all the credentials for that. Hopefully Vegas. I had a little side trouble with my vehicles, so that kind of took the lion's share of what I was saving up for the trip. So we're okay. I may have to get the ticket late, but we'll figure something out, and I'm going to manifest that because I really want to go. So you know, a few things I want to steal what I'm doing there in Vegas. So meet some of my fear by ziplining. So that's another thing I want to be doing. So that's the on the Fremont Street thing. So
yeah.
Cool.
So you're a certified master practitioner stroke teacher in metaphysics. How did you get into metaphysics?
Well, again, it was sort of the influence from my father. It's also / esoterica or esoteric. Metaphysics is kind of more like the universal term they use, but it's a little. When I was working, it's a little different. So I say metaphysics, it's a little easier to swallow for most people and to understand. I got involved with that when I moved up to the San Jose area.
I was just going to say, for the listeners who might not understand what the word esoteric means, do you mind explaining that?
It's kind of going more into mystery. Yes, great. It's kind of going more into mystery teachings, and sometimes some people look at that as something bad or evil. It's a form of magic, if you want to say. I've done some of that too, but it can be, but it's usually it's going more into magic, or manifest. It's the same thing as manifesting,
Okay.
learning how to use certain tools to do this and that and so on.
Okay.
And be able to use elements around you and so on. So that's really what it kind of gets down to in the simplest form. Spell work, manifestation, same thing. Really, that's what it comes right down to it. So
okay,
so you got that? Okay. When I was working in San Jose for high tech, there was a little metaphysical bookstore I used to visit and frequent quite a bit, and got to know the owner. And it was one of the few places in San Jose I can actually decompress. So if I had a stressful day, I'll go over there for about an hour, look at stuff, talk to them, read a book, or read something, or listen to some music, and then I'll go. But I started becoming friends with them so much that they're saying, hey, we're as they like to say, as they're teasing me, says we're bringing an adult version of Hogwarts. So I'm like, ooh, okay, do tell. And found out the previous owner was also in on teaching, and so that was about almost a 2-year course and different levels. And it went from apprentice, journeyman to masters. And we started off with a huge class of about 30 people. And then I passed through the first step and went into the journeyman level. And there's 15 of us. There's 15 of us. And then they weren't sure I was going to make it into the master's level, so I did some additional work. Anyway, he's got an interest. Let's push him into the other group, and then from there, from 10, we got down to 2 at the tail end, and yet I'm the only one that graduated out of that cycle.
Wow.
So I don't know how the fool did it, but he did it, And I considered myself the fool because I was kind of the jokester in class.
Don't say things like that. Suck that back in. You know that every word that comes out of your mouth is an affirmation, Antony.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. All right. You got that right.
Well, congratulations on graduating. That's very well done.
And they said after that I was able to teach and to pass on the knowledge or anything else that I want to go forward with. And then that's the whole point of what I'm doing now, or breaking into the business to do so. So
yes, yeah. And so you said that, you've already touched upon this, that when you were younger, you were able to read people before you knew them, not in a judgmental way, as you've said, but just as more of a protection thing, you feel. But you feel that you were told that this was wrong, so you dulled it down, as a lot of people do, a lot of people dull down their mediumship skills because they're a witch, or that's wrong and it's not, the Bible goes against it, and all this kind of stuff, and that's woo woo, you shouldn't do that. And I've seen it a lot amongst a lot of people who are spiritual, and no matter what their gifts are, it doesn't matter. I've seen it a lot, and actually I was just talking to Christina Love about it in my last interview, where she helps people to bring out their gifts to to show themselves to people, because it's so important, us as light workers, as people like to I don't like to call myself that, but however, I know a lot of people call us that. People who are bringing light into the world, I guess, and helping to raise the vibration of the planet, helping people to realize who they are and where they've come from. Quite often they will have their gifts dulled down, and you felt like that was happening to you when you were a child, that you had this clairsentience ability, but that you felt it was kind of pushed away from you. But since then, you've even cleared places, as you've already talked about, that has had paranormal activity. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was kind of thrown into that to some degree. I think it's also because I was also watching a lot of the programming on TV, them Ghost Hunters International, and those cats. And I really liked what they did because they're showing a scientific method, which I tend to kind of go into a little bit myself. And just to go to prove out there that maybe it's not, I don't like the term, but woo-woo, and it actually is. And because there's different. I'm sorry, my neighbor's dogs are going off.
That's all right. My dogs bark sometimes too.
Yeah. And so the. And they were showing that basically this does exist. It's not imaginary. This actually happens, and so it just kind of happened because I was able to see things sometimes, or feel things. I feel things more than I see them. And what happened is when I was involved with the Renaissance, one of the Renaissance fairs in California, my guild master said, "Hey, Tony, can you check this out? We don't know. There seems to be some problems." And well, the more and more I started looking at it, and then we were doing an event, and then we just got finished, and we had a whole gang over there, and then one of the kids disappeared in the backyard for a while, and we couldn't find him. And all of a sudden, he's not responding. Well, and he says, and I said, "Okay, something's wrong here." And he goes, "What do you mean something's wrong?" I said, "Something's wrong here." He says, I think you're right. We got the kid back in and make sure he was okay." And that took a little doing to do. And we started checking out the place. I said, "Did you always have any issues with some paranormal activity?" He goes, "Yeah." Okay, here we go. And just kind of went head forward first. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so we did that. When we finally cleared that house, that took a while. We had to get this entity that was attached to the kid off. I had to ground out. We found out later on that the house was built in what used to be an old riverbed. And that's the whole thing about Ontario, California. It sits right in the middle of a riverbed, and it's where water would flow, but there's two energy lines running through the house, which can cause a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And so I felt that, and then he double checked with me. He actually got a psychic person to go in there, and she said exactly the same thing like 2 weeks later. And he didn't tell him anything I said, So that's what started the whole thing. When we got this entity finally out of there, we closed the portal. Another time with some friends who found out that I was doing that I can do that kind of work, called me and says, "We're having a problem in our house." And I called another friend of mine who also does the kind of work as well. I call her one of my sisters, and went into that place. And there were two spirits in that place. One was acting kind of demonic, but he wasn't. He was being bigger than he was. I know that sounds kind of weird. And then there was one that was he was just benign. He was just out there just enjoying the garden. I walked right past him. I just saw something in the corner of my eye. I said, "Excuse me." And then my friend goes, "Did you see that? I just saw something from the corner of my eye." I said, "Excuse me." He said, "You moved out of your way." Oh, he did? I didn't see it. I said, "I just saw it. I just kind of went through it." And then we finally, after about 3 or 4 hours, we finally got rid of that. The other one, we closed up the portal on that one. And the really weird thing about that house is that it had all the old wiring from the 20s. It was a 20s bungalow style, California bungalow style. So it had all 3 different kinds of wiring in the house. So that basically kind of made it like a conduit. And then the way it was built on I-beam that ran right into the mountain. So it had like this whole grounding super highway thing going on. So, found out the previous owner didn't clear the house, and she was quote unquote a witch. And so something was still lingering there. So we had to take care of that. And doing that kind of work, and like I said, mainly by feel, there's things I even heard, and we were trying to record it. We couldn't get anything in recording. It was very strange. I wouldn't say it was strange, but this thing was acting bigger than what it was. It was without getting into much, the person was using this spirit form in other realms. And I hate using the term, but she was using it for sex magic, and of lack of a better term. And unfortunately, that thing was not cleared, and it was picking on my friend's wife and her girlfriend. In fact, even imitating his voice when he was sleeping in the other room. So that's it. It was starting to get out of control. So that's how the whole thing started. But we finally managed to take care of it. We started surrounding him, and then finally bring him down to where the portal was, and we closed the portal. And but I think when you do that kind of work, you're limited to how many times you can do it, because, like I said, I aged very quickly. And once I just, I don't know if you can tell right here, but my beard right here turned gray within like 3 days later after I was recouping. So. So it kind of like, okay, so how many times can I do this, before, it finally wipes me out? And I don't think it does now, but I think you're only limited to do so many times you can do that with. And it's something that when you get right down to it, I don't know what I'm fighting against. And some people say, "Well, don't you want to know what you're fighting against or what you're going against?" I said, I would rather not, because if I knew what it was, I give it power. So I want to do everything I can to take an upper hand on that, or take an advantage of it, even though it could be a tough spirit of some sort of stuff, a tough entity. So, and even experienced within my group up in San Jose, a form of exorcism, which was a trip. I mean, these entities entered this person. She was channeling them, but she didn't want them to go away, and so they started taking over and wouldn't give her the free will. So we kind of stepped in and did what we wanted to do, and I was just one of the help at the time. And it's
very
that was a
interesting.
couple of hours worth of work. It was a couple of hours worth of work. I mean, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go on this? Because I can go in heavy detail, and I don't want to go bore everybody with that. But
Yeah,
like I said, there's only so many times you can do that, and
yeah,
I don't advertise that normally because I don't want to be called all the time unless it's really a necessity. Then I'll go in.
yeah.
I've had problems with another lady I consider my sister, and I've known her for like 30 years, and just a good friend. But she's like my sister, and she even had issues. And then we've worked on things together. And you know, as I said, that's a service that I can provide. I just don't advertise it. I don't want that kind of ghost hunters type of fame or like ghost adventures.
No, it's just something that you've done a few times. Yeah, no, it's
something
just,
I've done, and I can still do it. I just don't. It's not something I really advertise too much. But thanks for asking the question.
Yeah. I know that it's
Wow.
really, yeah, thank you for sharing that with us anyway. No, so I mean, the listeners will know that, you know, it's not something that you will ordinarily do. It's just something that you have done a few times, and, you know, it's just interesting to hear the stories, really. I know that you're very into keeping your body clean and healthy, and I've even in the past seen you do some lives on making healthy meals that you cook up for yourself. Is this where your live video speaking started?
Come again with the question. I didn't quite hear that.
So I know that you like to look after your body with clean and healthy food, and I've even seen you doing lives on cooking meals, you know, healthy meals for Anthony, and you videoed it and put it out to the public. Is this where your live video speaking started?
Actually, no, that was just something I wanted to do on the side. It just kind of started off as a thing. It was like, oh, we want the recipes. Can you do more? It's just a matter of getting the time to make more. Actually, on my YouTube channel, I started doing this thing because I was really getting interested because my past working with special needs, special needs people, and being in the U.S. military, being a field medic and all that, I felt that wasn't enough. And I was even an X-ray tech for the short stint I was in. I just didn't feel like it was enough. So I started listening to life coaches and so on. So, you know, I really want to do that. So what I started with the whole video series was a thing I started naming On the Trail. And I was up in the area where I had a lot more wilderness areas. So I used to do a lot of hiking. So I figured, well, what a great way to say we're on a path, or we're on, or all paths lead to one. That's just what I believe. So I figured, what a way to kind of show it off a little bit, and then little insights as I'm on the trail. And that's how the whole thing started. And then became the Facebook Lives, which is easier to deal with.
Some of those. I in the early days when I was getting to know you, I watched some of your on the trail videos.
Right.
So yeah. But you also do, you know, you do other lives now, as you just mentioned there briefly, like spirituality lives, called Live with Anthony. So what days do you do those on, and what sorts of topics do you cover?
Well, it's surprising. Sometimes if I learn something, I like to pass it on as I'm in the process, or that I've learned a process. And sometimes it's just, what topic do I want to talk about? And then I'll look up, and sometimes it'll be like a day or two out. This week it's going to be a little bit different. I have the basic idea, and I just got to, you know, sit down there and kind of give myself an outline. And so it's just that sometimes it gets a little more spiritual. Sometimes it gets a little bit more on the practical end of it. I've always feel led to be doing this stuff, and that's why I'm finally just like, okay, universe, I'm listening. I'm gonna do this. And I think it fits in with everything else that I'm doing. Like I said, with On the Trails, and that's still going to be working those, but just right now, this time of the year, it's a little too hot to be hiking, and so that's going to be put on hold a little bit. So those come out when I can come out with them. But I figured the lives are kind of more up to date, and then the question sometimes comes up, or I run into a problem and I'm trying to find a solution, and you know, respond compared to react, which I was a really big reactor when I was a kid. So even in most of my adult life, so I'm learning to respond, and then taking that step back, taking that deep breath back, and going, okay, how can we handle this? How can we handle this in a different way? How can we this? And then surprisingly, after I ask, pray, go into meditation, answers usually come, or within about a day or two later after the meditation, it's like, okay, note that. And then usually it becomes the topic. Sometimes I'll pick it 2 hours before I even go on the air. It just depends what I'm at the time. So it's sporadic. Unfortunately, I would like to have it, correct that, change that. I'm going to have it so I have a topic that I know what I'm working on every week. It doesn't always happen exactly where I want it, but I'd like to be like midweek, have a topic ready to go, and that way I can bring it into into the Facebook Live or the broadcast.
You know what? Sometimes I find it's easier just to keep it free, the way that you have been doing. Because I mean, I do a lot of lives, and I could last minute decide to go live, but and for that again, up to an hour before I'm going live, I wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about. So sometimes it's nice to keep it as free flowing. So don't beat yourself up about that at all.
Oh yeah. That's why I said I had to go. So let me make the change on that. Yeah, and sometimes I have. I said, okay, we're going to go freeform tonight. I have a topic. Don't know where we're going to go with it. Let's go.
Exactly.
And I've done that a few times. So and those actually turn out to be some of the best, actually.
Absolutely. So you say, Antony, that it has been your mission in life to help others achieve the best that they can be. You say that you feel you have been groomed through life to do this kind of work. So all your past experiences really have led you to where you are today, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And my past doesn't, but my past doesn't rule me either. But it was just all the culmination of things. I think that was one of the awakenings I had when I was in my all-time low 2 years ago, before moving out here to Phoenix. I lost who I was. I mean, those early days of on the trail are like 3 years old now, and I started on it, got involved with someone, and then I lost who I was. I lost my voice. I was just a nervous wreck, and it's kind of I guess it was another thing I had to go through. I don't know. It was something so maybe I can learn, so I won't repeat the lessons over and over. And then finally, when everything fell apart, and then we were up here in Phoenix, and then the separation happened, and I finally discovered somebody who I've missed for a long time, and that was myself, and starting to love myself again, and kind of that became kind of like a forerunner. According to another life coach friend of mine, they said I'm kind of like one of the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, one of the well, I'm having a problem with words today. It happens. Yeah, it's she said one of the darn it, I'll think of the word. Anyway, she said one of the people that started, basically one of the people who started forging in self-love and understanding what that was all about. She said you were a pioneer. That was the word. I was thinking forging going forward. So yeah, kind of a pioneer in and of myself in that. So she's kind of gave me that little compliment, which was really sweet. And from there, I just started building it up from there. So it was literally on a 1 to 2 year hiatus from what I started, and now I'm back on track. So it's really been an interesting journey, and the journey hit hard on the time I was down. I mean, I was virtually homeless 2 years ago, and living out of a dilapidated motorhome. I mean, we had a roof over our head, and the thing barely ran, but we managed to get here to Arizona, and then the rest is history. So the bills are finally starting to pile up.
Yeah, I mean, quite often, we can go through things like that, and we grow through what we go through. We always expand and learn and grow and come out the other side. And that's the thing that I suppose is the message here to everybody else, is that, no matter what tough time you're going through, that it's always possible to come out the other side. And, having grown, having expanded, having learned, and be able to project our light or our love out onto the world and to the universe at large, and help other people through doing that. So well done to you, Antony.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been getting back to the grooming thing just for the seconds, because of all that my father was trying to teach me, even though I kind of rejected it because of the other belief system I was in, and all that, and then some other things, of course, being and having the psychic ability that I have, a little bit of it, and like everybody's gift is going to be different a little bit on that, and psychic sensitive, and again, I always had that. I always felt it's just one of those things, but you don't always understand what you have at the time you have it until I guess maturity hits, or you've learned the lessons. And it's been a heavy road, but you know what? I look back and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I think that's been the new light as of late. So yes, in a sense, I've been groomed. I've been kind of groomed since far back as I can remember, because I always cared for other people. I had friends who were special needs. I never thought them to be weird or strange. I just thought they were quirky. They were different, but I always liked them and loved them for who they are. I've got many friends who are, I mean, I stood up for them a couple of times. I got beat up a couple of times, but that was really, and children can be very cruel when they're young. They can be very cruel.
Absolutely.
And they say the innocence of a child are going, where? Sometimes when they say that. But again, those behaviors when they're being cruel was actually learned. So when they came into the world, they weren't like that. That was learned from even environmental, parents, friends, school, community, whatever, So it does get kind of passed on, and we learn those. And it's the part when you have to break away from it. But I always had a bleeding heart for it. That's why when I went in the military, at a very crucial time in my life, I decided as much as I don't like war, and I still don't like war.
Who does?
Why I went into the medical corps. I had high enough test scores to go in, and that's why I went as a field medic and then an X-ray tech, which was a double MOS they call out here with the U.S. Army. But like I said, it still just wasn't enough. I said, this is great. This is wonderful. I understand how the body functions. I know how to patch the body up. Still know all my stuff over the years. When you need it, it comes back, But I'm saying there's something more to this. And I couldn't figure out what it was until the whole thing with starting with the On the Trail thing. And then getting back real quick with the recipes you're talking about when I do those. More and more people are asking me to do that. So I was like, okay, so I'll just do more. And I'm trying to find healthier alternatives to things that I grew up with. I mean, I grew up, half Italian family. The hearth and the heart of the home was the kitchen. Everything centered around the kitchen. A lot around food, a lot. But I'm so used to traditional stuff. And then how can I make it healthier? And that was kind of my question for myself. And then I realized people are actually paying attention to this. I'm like, okay, maybe I should do a little bit more. And it's just a matter of time. So anyway. Awesome. Sorry for the roundabout. We finally got that answer. It's still stuck in my head. So there you go.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, I pretty much asked you everything I think I need to ask you, except for what services can you or do you provide to the people should they wish to contact you? Where's the best places to reach you? And if you want to give your links and all of that.
Okay. Like I said, if you want to look at the past episodes, it's on Salon Productions. That's actually my middle name. Is Solan. Interesting, my father.
Spell it for us, sorry.
Solan.
Okay.
I hyphenate it in Solan, Solan, which actually he said it meant like the O in, like, say, O'Malley, for example, son of. He said it sort of like that. And I found out later, Sol, S-O-N, son, and an article of one, so a son of, or one son. So he threw that as my name, Antony One Son Covello, or a son of Covello, and I started looking at more of the things. So I said, well, I can use that as my One Son Productions, but I would use my middle name. So that's why I started. That's my YouTube channel. You can find me there with all the old episodes, and even that one, even that one thing I did for Susanville, for that one burger joint before I changed my diets around a little bit, and that was. Best of the town. You can really reach me at my my personal page at Antony S. Covello on Facebook, or at A. Covello's Positive and Mindful Counsel. which is changing. It's going to be, look for it. It's coming up. It's actually going to become Alive with Antony. So it's going to be how I'm working it away, and then segueing into more work going on YouTube, and then finally getting a web page out. I kind of took the backdoor method to get there, but we're going to get there. And services, I do Reiki treatments. I can do them remotely over the phone, or excuse me, or I like to do duo, so that way when I'm doing a remote, I'm in contact with you the whole time. I'm not just going to say, okay, send me the fee, and I'll schedule it in, and then you'll never hear from me again. I'd rather have that one-on-one, even via the phone or via the video chat, because I think it gives it a more personal thing. If you're in Phoenix, I can obviously do that. Now, if you're a female, I would suggest have your husband with you or your best friend with you, because being a male Reikiist or a Reiki practitioner, we have a slight disadvantage because of all the problems in the world. We have to do things a little bit differently in that way. So we're not saying we're making an advance on you or anything sexual. So we had to take a completely different route. So I'm very sensitive to that. And so I said, okay, I want somebody else there. And that's just to basically cover myself a little bit, and also realize that, no, he did not make a pass at you, or he slid in a certain way, and it was meant as sexual. I don't do slides anyway. I do break and then say, okay, I'm moving my hand down to your wrist. And once I reconnect, I'm going to be moving my other hand onto your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't slide, because the slide can be considered as a sexual advance. So I don't do that. There's parts of the body I will not touch. Although in Reiki, you do have a couple of positions. I don't do those, because obviously if I'm working with a female client, I can't do that. So that I do. I have right now a couple of people in right now. I'm kind of counseling through myself in mindfulness, and having them awaken to their best potential. So it's basically becoming into the point of going into the counseling and teaching, and I'll have my first, hopefully soon, my first online course coming on, which will also be taking on students as well for that. So it's happening.
So what's the online class?
It's either probably going to be, I'm still at the working processes of this.
Oh, okay. So it's a secret right now.
So it's still a secret right now, but now kind of the secret's out, but I am working on it. I've been kind of working on it for a while, and finding out, and I can give you some premises, like get out of the old paradigm. And there's things that we've done for centuries, and we're still kind of doing it, and we do it in an automatic mode. We don't even think about why we're doing certain things. So, and the more I dug into that, and realized, well, that hits everyday life, doesn't it? And then by understanding that, how to make the paradigm shift out of yourself in order to go forward, and in the mindfulness, love, of course, and then of course doing intentional work as well. So it's kind of the not exactly what you're doing, but on the same boat, what you're doing, Allie. So this is on my Positive Mindful Counsel, which will be changing, or a new page to Alive with Antony, and then or on my personal page at Antony Covello on
Wonderful. Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry. Or you can reach me at via email. That will be Antony _ at Hotmail, and then
sorry, you broke up.
I'm sorry.
Hold on, sorry, you broke up. Antony _ Covello.
Covello at Hotmail.
At Hotmail. So it's Covello is your surname, and Antony is actually spelled Antony.
O-N-Y.
No
Exactly.
H in it, just to clarify.
No H. Yeah, they didn't. Well, parents kind of. Dad did that. He wanted to keep it more Roman, which would be Antony. My name is Roman, it would be Antonius, and so they never put the English H in there. They didn't fill the H, which was the English version.
It's just to clarify, really, for the listeners, because a lot of people will put an H in, when they're looking.
The H, right? And so there's no H in my name. So
yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to meet you and to share some time and hear your story. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you so
Namaste.
much, and Allie, we'll hope this. Namaste.
All right, thank you, and thank you, listeners. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.